And when we got to the hourly rate that technically I was being paid for the amount of work that I was doing on a weekly basis, I will never forget that meeting with her. I literally stared at her face and I said, that's that, like, this is impossible. Like,
Yeah.
the amount that I am committing and just pouring my entire soul into, and it was like pennies compared to what it should have been. And so that was a really pivotal moment for me. Like, it all aligned into one of understanding, okay, these are all the physical things that was happening. Here's what I'm seeing of, like, it's just not aligned from a professional standpoint. This was the gut reaction, and it was the right gut reaction. It's like, okay, now how do I make that happen?
Hi, you're listening to On Your Terms with me, Hayley Ryan. This is the show where two people get honest about the messy reality of choosing yourself. No scripts, no performance, just real conversation about self-abandonment, boundaries, and what it actually looks like to live on your own terms. So let's get into it. Hi, welcome to this week's episode. I'm joined by Anna, and Anna is a 3-time founder redefining how women connect, gather, and grow in business, which sounds absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to get stuck into. Thank you so much for joining me, Anna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Haley, for having me today. I'm really excited for our chat.
Me too. So, obviously, like, there isn't one specific choice that you've made to choose yourself. But your journey is kind of stemmed from trying to build success for yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you want to kind of take me back in time to kind of before you figured out who you were and what you wanted to do and what your specific way of building that success was, and tell me about what life was like before?
Yeah. Oh man, this is like, go down memory lane, right?
Yep.
So I've had a unique dream in the sense that I've always wanted to be in community and events and be the planner. And that's always been instilled in me since I was a little girl. And so that at its core has never changed. But I think through the seasons, as I look back, the way that I approach that has changed in the season that I need to be in, right? And so I'll
Yeah.
kind of go back. I have been in the events and hospitality world for over 16 years, almost 17. And the first version, right, of before putting myself first, right, or being in this space where I am now, that looked like being the corporate goody two shoes of climbing the corporate ladder. I will say I did start with a dream corporate job right out of college, which I was super, super grateful
Amazing.
for. And it allowed me to travel the world literally right out of college. So not only was it I got to produce incredible events globally, but I got to also travel globally. I got to meet incredible people and different cultures and customs, right? And so I was really genuinely living my ultimate dream. And but naturally with that came a lot of sacrifice, and it came a lot with the hard work to grind, so to speak,
Yeah.
in the corporate world. And yes, from the outside on the Instagram posts and the stories that I shared, it looked like I had the life. But on the inside, and what a lot of people didn't know at the time, some people might not still know what I was going through, was significant burnout. I was also at an age where, and back then, burnout was not talked about,
Yeah.
not nearly as much in general, but definitely not in the corporate world. And so I was just struggling in the sense of, like, who am I outside of being the successful producer in the corporate world? And how do I continue to grow, right? Continue to climb this ladder of this dream job. But then, coming back home, I'm suffering on a lot of levels, mentally, physically, emotionally. And so understanding really, that hard decision of, like, I'm living what I've always wanted to do, but yet I know something's wrong, but I don't know how to approach it. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know who to talk to. And so it was this really interesting space that I was in for a big chunk of my career because I was, again, in corporate for about 10 years. And so that was a big struggle that I was facing and ultimately didn't really know how to approach at the time.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you mentioned, obviously, like, especially back then, it wasn't talked about the corporate world, which
Yeah,
is absolutely mad because the hustle culture is so strong in the corporate world, and
so
if
real.
anybody's going to burn out, it's going to be people in that community and in that environment. So what did burnout look like for you?
Yeah, so there's phases to it, and as I look back, I recognize the phases, right? In the moment, I didn't realize it was burnout for many many years.
Yeah.
It was really until I actually stepped into the entrepreneurial world and had coaches and mentors kind of walk me through the beginning stages of entrepreneurship that you have to look back, you have to understand what are the stories and shadows that are kind of in your world in the current context. But what it looked like was just chronic body pain. So I was also a professional athlete at the same time.
Wow.
So when I shared like overachiever, it was like that was my full identity. It was to be that top of the class of our corporate world. It was to achieve the best in the sport world. I was a professional swimmer, and so it would go to practice in the morning, go to work during the day, and then go back to practice in the evening. All maintaining that really high standard for myself, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's all great and all, but naturally that, the signs were there. I just didn't know how to acknowledge, and the fact that they were signs of burnout and not necessarily, to me, it was signs of, oh, I'm just sore from workout. Oh, I'm just tired, right? And so those were the stories I was telling myself, where in
Yeah.
reality it was I had complete chronic pain in my neck and shoulders. Which naturally, right? If I back in the day, I'm giving myself grace for the younger Anna, be like, yeah, I can understand why you thought it was from training, right? Because that is a lot of where swimming, so to speak, injuries come from. But also at the same time, right? It wasn't supposed to be 24/7, or even after I was getting body work done, it was still there, right? And so it's those kind of triggers where I just was clueless to it. Something else from a body perspective, I had migraines, I would say 2 to 3 times a week. And
Wow.
so, also not normal. But for me, I labeled it for many, many years as I just had chronic migraines, you know. And then there's the part where over some time, I started to lose my passion and love for what I genuinely love to do. And
Mm.
those were in the beginning small touches of like not wanting to go to England or not wanting to go to the Grammy Awards, and realizing that those are incredible opportunities and incredible experiences that I get to be a part of. And the fact that I don't want to, like, there's an inner of like, I really would love to just stay home and watch the Grammys on the couch in my PJs versus being all dolled up and doing the things that we had to do, right? To another person, and whenever I share that with my friends, they'll be like, girl, you're going to the Grammys. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I knew that those were the light bulb moments. Again, after a few years, where I started realizing that there's something off here. And I'm falling out of love with the whole purpose of what I feel deeply inside for so many years. And that kind of was this like the first moment that I
Yeah.
realized that I was going through burnout personally.
And it's amazing, isn't it? Because I've spoken to a few people that have said exactly the same thing. It's kind of like on paper and to the outside world, they've got this perfect idyllic
Yeah.
life and they're doing things that most people can only dream of. Yet
Right.
deep down, they are like miserable, and they're so
Absolutely.
miserable. It's making them ill. And
Yeah.
I would imagine, going back to what you were saying about, like, looking back, you can see how, like, the migraines and the chronic pain was not normal. But I would
Absolutely.
imagine if you spoke to people back then, they'd have probably been going through the same things, wouldn't they? So it would just feel completely normal because nobody spoke.
genuinely the word burnout was in none of our vocabulary when I was back in corporate during that time. It really was that we were just being overworked because the
Yeah.
event world is an intense world, unfortunately. I was on the global hospitality sector, so I traveled the world, which meant, you have not only the event production side of the drain, but you also have to fight time changes and just travel alone, right? If
Yeah.
anyone travels, even just across, to a different state, it puts a toll on your body. And so those are things that never in a million years back then was something that I would, you know, think about and kind of put into perspective. Now, as much as I love travel, if I don't have to be there, I'm gonna either send someone or we're going to have a discussion of maybe I'm going to be there shorter, right? I'm going to get there a little bit more luxuriously just because I know that my body can't handle all of the things that go, that are a part
Yeah.
of the travel in addition to the production piece to it.
Yeah, that makes sense because obviously you've lived through it, so you've kind of figured out what works and what doesn't, and
Right.
now you can make those decisions because you've lived that experience. So yeah, that makes
Absolutely.
a lot of sense. So it must have been quite lonely as well if you were kind of jet setting here, there, and everywhere, really overworked, really busy. What was it like trying to have relationships, like friendships and intimate relationships?
Yeah, such a great question. So, back then in corporate, I worked on the agency side. So we, in the event world, you become super, super close with everyone in that space and in your,
Yeah.
agency. So we had a group of like 8, 10 of us that kind of like grew within the agency, together in different aspects. And we were each other's world. Like that's because we also understood the world we were in of just
Yeah.
the high intensity. There's also the hospitality. So there's events and then there's hospitality, which is a whole different ball game. Um, and so, we knew the expectations that we had on us and then the expectations we put on ourselves. And what it just takes to survive. And so, I think that was the biggest thing. And genuinely, if I look back, like the only way that we were able to make it through was to be able to just lean on each other. And when we were home, we got to just like go hang out and, reprieve all the stress and anxiety that we've built up, trying to plan the events. But yeah, I mean, it for sure got lonely. I mean, for me personally, I it was myself and my manager that was managing our whole entire global hospitality program for our client. And so after the first year, my manager actually decided to not travel because she was growing a family.
Yeah.
So I was the young buck on the team and again, I was super eager in the beginning and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go to everything that we have on our calendar. Now, that's beautiful and fun and all, but after doing it for 6 years, it added on, right? It
Yeah, I
not
can
only from
imagine.
the burnout perspective, but I would only travel by myself to produce these events, to host these programs. Now, there's a part of me that enjoys that because I do love my solo time. So the whole, traveling alone and getting somewhere to a new place and kind of exploring it on my own, for me, actually, I really enjoy that. I know for some that's like literally the worst nightmare possible. But you know, after the first 2, 3, 4 times you're going to the same place, you do get this sense of like, oh, I wish I could share this with someone.
Yeah.
Because I've already done all the things. I've seen all the places that I needed to see. So there definitely has been that moment of, I wish I can have someone along, whether it's, a friend or a romantic partner. Um, but then again, on the other end, there was kind of that balance where I got to host incredible human beings for these events. And so I got to become really close with them, specifically around these. These were hospitality packages that we curated and hosted on site. So I got to hang out with these people for multiple days, 3 to 5 days, depending on the package. And so I got to really get to know them too as people, and as amazing human beings. And, there's still some that I keep in touch to this day, which is really
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, I think in general, to just go back to your initial question, it for sure was lonely. But we kind of we had to make it work. And I'll also say my family had no clue what I was doing. Oh, like they just were so excited. Like I got to travel the world and, host and produce these incredible global events. But they genuinely didn't even know like what I was doing day to day, how hard it really was
Yeah.
for me, right? So from that aspect, it absolutely was lonely because I didn't really get to, have those conversations or get to really share like, yeah, I just got back from Sydney, but I genuinely like there is zero energy in my tank for the trip that I have to take in 3 days. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Honestly, like I'm sat here listening and it sounds amazing and it sounds like the life that dreams are made of. And then I'm sort of like, but even just listening to you talk, it just sounds so exhausting.
Yeah. I mean,
And I
it
don't even know
definitely.
the half of it.
Yeah, and again, right, like I don't want to burn any dreams of anyone that wants to get into the event world because it absolutely is the most incredible career that I could have, one experience and ask for continuing moving forward. It's just really understanding how to do it right.
Yeah.
For your body, for your, mental health and for your physical health. So that's where I don't want to scare anyone away because it truly is incredible. It's just doing it the right way, doing
Yeah.
it in a way that feels really good to your body, and that you don't do it into burnout. And, I've had conversations with a lot of even entrepreneurs in the event space, event producers. And unfortunately, the hustle culture that you mentioned from corporate is not only in corporate events, but it's also in entrepreneurial events. Like
Yeah.
all of us, it's a problem in the event industry in general because we just got to grind it out to produce it to the best ability. But there is ways to personally create boundaries, to set expectations, to create processes to make sure it still is it's the best thing that you've produced, but you're
Yeah.
not killing yourself to the last, second.
Yeah. Because if you are killing yourself, then you're not giving it 100% anyway, are you? Because you just haven't got it in you
Absolutely.
to do the best
Yeah,
job
you're
you can.
depleted.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Hmm.
it's so important, no matter what career you're in, is to make sure that you are looking after yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally.
100%. Yeah.
Um, so what changed? Because obviously, like we've talked about the burnout, but you said like at the time you weren't really sure what that was because you just thought it was normal.
Yeah.
So what was like the turning point that made you realize that this was so damaging?
So I experienced two really severe burnouts. Now, I'm going to caveat by saying I've had several, but the two major ones that created pivots in my life. The first one being I think we're coming up around 6, 7 years ago, where I made the pivot from corporate to entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
And there was this moment where I was truly not loving any version of events or role because I switched roles within the agency 3 times.
Wow.
To try to find kind of the new fix, right? To find the
Yeah.
new love again. And all three fell super short. And so I knew that that was kind of like a red flag that I needed a change in my life, not um, like from a personal standpoint, but I needed a change professionally, right? And this was a hard part because I was self-labeled and agency labeled like the lifer of this agency, that I was one of those that absolutely loved everything and anything about this agency, what we did, all of the stuff. And so I think for me, seeing that I was experiencing this detachment to what I truly was passionate about was kind of that first red flag,
Hmm.
in that first burnout. And then just the severity of how ill I was getting. I was finding myself in the hospital. I was finding myself just completely depleted, physically and emotionally. And Again, I didn't really know how and what to do about that. I had the idea that it was maybe time to shift and go into entrepreneurship, which the irony of it is that entrepreneurship is very hard, right? It's not that it
Oh
was the
yeah.
easy route, right? Um, but through that kind of this hunch, I would say, right? Like I had this deep feeling that I needed to pivot away from corporate life because there was also just the added corporate pressures and BS, to say it politely,
Yeah.
that I think was also, weighing on me personally. So I hired a business coach, and that business coach pretty much we dissected my salary compared to the hours and the amount of work that I was putting in. And when we got to the hourly rate that technically I was being paid for the amount of work that I was doing on a weekly basis, I will never forget that meeting with her. I literally stared at her face and I said, "That's that. Like this is impossible. Like
Yeah.
the amount that I am committing and just pouring my entire soul into." And it was like pennies compared to what it should have been. And so that was a really pivotal moment for me of
Mm.
kind of like it all kind of aligned into one of understanding, okay, these are all the physical things that was happening. Here's what I'm seeing of like, it's just not aligned from a professional standpoint. This was the gut reaction and it was the right gut reaction. It's like, okay, now how do I make that happen? So from that meeting, she prompted me to set my date of putting in my 2 weeks, and I committed to that date and I put my 2 weeks on that date when we committed it together on that call a year later, which was really amazing.
Wow.
So that was kind of the first version of the burnout. And really quickly the second one was during entrepreneurship. So I want to share also that burnout happens in either
Yeah.
version in reality, right? You don't escape it because you leave corporate. I experienced burnout to the point, and this was all majority physical, but a lot of mental, to pretty much like the darkest time of my career, not knowing where the next paycheck was coming from because
Mm.
I didn't have an influx of clients at the time. So the stress of keeping lights on to pay the rent, to support my brother who, we were living together. It just weighed so heavily on me emotionally. And then that led into physical. So I was sick constantly. I had random pains that doctors had no diagnosis for. I was in the ER because of certain situations.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you, probably 1 to 2 times a year on a regular basis because my body was just crashing. It just had nothing left in it because of the stress that I was putting myself under, on top of the financial stress that I was going through. So that
Yeah.
was a really big, like the biggest and most recent pivot for myself that really catapulted into a lot of, which I'm sure we'll get into, a lot of the focus and processes and priorities and boundaries that I have set for myself now to never, ever, ever, ever get to a point where I am in that dark of a place for
Yeah.
myself.
I can imagine as well, because like I had a similar situation where I was working for a company, and I kind of like I'm a people pleaser in recovery is what I like to call myself, because I'm not
Yep.
perfect, but I'm better than I was. But at the time, I was a huge people pleaser, and if there was things to be done, then I would just get on and do them, to the point where I was office manager doing bookkeeping. I was training the apprentices because the accountants didn't want to do it because it was taking too much time. The window
Yeah.
cleaner was rubbish, so I ended up cleaning the windows. And
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
I literally one night, I'd just taken on too much, and I was doing work that other members of staff should have been doing but weren't, because I knew if I didn't do it, it wouldn't get done, and we were on
Yeah.
deadlines for clients and things like that.
Right.
And this one night, I
I was really struggling with my breathing. I didn't know it at the time, but it was a massive panic attack building.
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
3 o'clock in the morning, we have, I don't know if you have the same over there in the US, but in the UK, our supermarkets are open 24 hours. So you can literally
Mm.
go and do your weekly food shop at 3 o'clock in the morning, which I
Yeah, it's the
did.
best thing ever. Yeah, absolutely.
um,
No one you have to bump carts with.
because I was so desperate to distract myself
Mm.
from how I was feeling and things like that.
Yeah.
And I got back and I don't remember anything other than my husband walking into the kitchen and like basically like just taking me to bed because I was from
Yeah.
what he said, I literally unpacked some of the shopping. It was literally just all around me in the kitchen. I was
Everywhere.
sat on the floor just crying my eyes out and struggling
Mm.
to catch my breath.
Mm.
And he luckily has a lot of experience dealing with like panic attacks and anxiety and things like that. So he knew how to calm me down. But like
Yeah.
I promised myself after that no, I can't do this. And the worst thing was, and this I suspect this is like the corporate sort of world as well, but I ended up in hospital and my doctor signed me off work for 2 weeks. I handed in my
Mm.
notice at work, and the only thing my boss said when I emailed her to say that I was handing my notice in, I'm very disappointed. And that was
Wow.
it.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I say wow, but there's a part of me that is not surprised.
No.
Because I have, yeah, I mean, that unfortunately is that hustle culture, do everything, no matter what state you're in.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, again, especially I'm hoping it's different now. I'm hoping that there's slight changes, but
I think
especially back then. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
I think the fact that more people are talking about it now is a good thing
Yeah.
because, like, I mean, for me, it was years ago. But again, like nobody really talked about it, and
Right.
if you sort of expressed concerns, it was like, oh
Hmm.
well, you're obviously not cut out for this. You just can't hack it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's 100% is actually perfect because I was going to go there in the sense that you were labeled as weak,
Yeah.
right? If you asked for time off, listen, I can't even tell you, I maybe took off 10 days from
Ooh,
corporate over X number of years.
wow.
And because I felt guilty because I got to travel the world and I arrived on a Saturday. I didn't work on Saturday, but I got to explore on Sunday because our event was on Monday and Tuesday. And I felt like if I come back on Wednesday, I can't take Thursday off to rest. And it was just that mentality that what would everyone else in the office think? I just got back from Sydney and God forbid she has to take off a day, right? Or, I just had back-to-back events. Um, I'm weak to have to rest before we go on the next one, right?
Yeah.
So it I will say I know there's incredible human beings that are doing the really hard work that are tapping into the corporate world to help with this, to bring this to light for a lot of leaders, because it does start from the top. And to help them understand how to support their teams and their companies. So those people are angels because they're really trying to help change the culture
Yeah.
that has just been unfortunately, you know, embedded for so many decades. So there is a lot of unlearning for many people in that capacity. But yeah, the more of us that create these boundaries, whether you're in corporate or you're on your own, I think the better off not only we will be, but we also create the chance for others to learn
Yeah.
to create boundaries and to, be like, oh, wow, she actually said no because she's taking a few days off, and gets to reflect on themselves of like, maybe I can too.
Yeah.
So I think the more we keep talking about it and the more we keep acting, there's one thing to talk about it. There's another thing to act on it.
Yep, definitely.
Then, we're gonna continue to help each other out for sure.
Yeah, and by talking about it and acting on it, it normalizes it as well. So it makes it
Right.
less of a taboo subject and less
Right.
shameful and
Yeah.
all
You don't
the
have to
other
hide behind it.
nasty emotions that come with it.
Absolutely.
So what happened next then? So obviously, like you've been the founder of three businesses
Yeah.
of your own now. So talk me through
Mhm.
that and tell me about what you're doing now.
Yeah, so this is the really fun pivot journey that I've taken on the last couple years. So after the most recent burnout, I really had to sit with why and how long do I want to keep going at this? I was facing the question of what do I do next for probably 3 years. And in reality, I think all 3 years I was in burnout mode. It's just in different capacity until it finally hit kind of the thermometer peak. Um, and so there was this battle that do I go back to corporate for the stability, or do I keep chugging through and just not know kind of how I'm going to get to that next step. Now, for someone who had the story of, the girl who left corporate to start her own business, for me, going back to corporate was the sense of failure that I
Mm,
failed in building my business. I failed in growing the second business that I, at that time, most recently just launched. And what is it going to look like to everyone in my world if I go back to corporate and not be, an entrepreneur? So all the different stories that was going through my head, and I was fighting against all of them.
yeah.
Long story short, I got offered an opportunity to support a girlfriend of mine for her maternity leave. And it genuinely came at that time of me fighting back and forth of do I go back to corporate or not? And I'm not kidding you. She just randomly texted me. She sent me the job description, and she was like, "Listen, it's for 6 months. Like,
Yeah.
please, we trust you that you're gonna be perfect for it. You can continue doing the things that you're doing on the side." Um, and I was like, absolutely, hands down. And that was kind of that miracle moment for me to know that at least for the next 6 months, I had a foundation
Yeah.
and, went through the interview process, all that. Thankfully, I got the job. And no joke, within the second that I got that, approval email, the weight off of the shoulders that completely disappeared in a second. The ability to breathe like an actual human being and not hold it all in, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much we can go into about like we don't breathe normally on a day-to-day basis. And just this like wave of relief that came across knowing that I will be able to make it, and the fact that that opportunity came while I was in that hustle of do I do it, do I not do it, was the universe being like, you need this. Like there's no other situation in this moment for you right now. And so I am extremely, extremely blessed and just so grateful for that opportunity. Because that was that launching pad for me to, move forward into where I am today at that time. So, I took the job or the contract job technically. I still had my event firm, but the second business that I recently launched, which was Solara, it was launched probably 6 months at that point, and I made the hard decision to just put it on the shelf.
Mm,
I contacted all of our members. I let them know they'll get prorated refunds and that whole scenario. But I knew that I needed to step away in order for me to heal a lot what was happening inside,
yeah.
because I was not able to give to the women in this community, to the event hosts that we were serving nearly as much as I could have because I was fully depleted. There, like, no one was a priority. Um, where I knew that I needed to be a priority first in order to then be able to help support them. So that was a big moment to pause that business, to put it on the shelf. I didn't open one email after I set everyone, set everything, set up everything properly. And I didn't even think about that business for the next 6 months. And that was a big relief because I didn't
Yeah.
realize the pressures I was putting myself on under to try to, you know, get as many client or members and how to grow it and how to, get partnerships, and all that was adding to the stress. Where all that energy and time I was putting into that, I put into myself.
Yeah.
So I hired a trainer, going to the gym. I started eating right. I started creating morning routines. I started getting outside more than just a walk or two with my dog a day. Right. I was finally prioritizing myself in this season, which was like a new concept to my nervous system and my body, because for the entire career, right, we've talked about since corporate through now, my entire career, I prioritize everybody else, even people I didn't know, because I was hosting them and I needed to make sure that they had the best 3 days of their trip. And so this was the first time I finally put myself first, and it changed everything.
Did you recognize it at the time as growth, or did you just think like, well, this is what needs to be done?
I have some incredible women in my life so I'm going to say no initially. But as I was going through this and I was sharing it with, some of my girlfriends that are entrepreneurs themselves, they would make me pause and remember that these are incredible growth moments for myself, right? The first growth being that I accepted that maternity leave job. Second is to put myself first.
Yeah.
Third is to actually commit to the things that I said I would commit, because I've said I was going to prioritize myself 20,000 times during my career. Did I actually do it? That's a different story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely didn't, but I had reminders definitely in and day out to, just remind myself that, these are things and, accomplishments and milestones for myself that we need to also celebrate too.
Yeah. And that's, I think, why community is so important as well, because like you say, without those good friends around you, you wouldn't have actually realized that you were winning.
Absolutely. And, even with just hiring my trainer, that alone, and she's virtually, she's not here in Austin with me. But just having her and me letting her know if I did not feel great in the gym or during my weekly check-in with her, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm progressing. But I have her coming back being like, girl, you don't even see what I see. Right. And just having that mirrored back to you, because we're in our heads. We have this vision sometimes, right? Whether it's a body image, whether it's the business success, whether it's I should be here. The outside world sees it completely different than we do for ourselves. So to your point, having a community, having people that believe in you, that trust you, that see you as you really are, and reflect that back to you, to kind of almost like wake you up and be like, girl, like, I don't know what you're seeing, but this is what we see. Like, keep going or do this, and it's just so refreshing to be able to have that, which is it's beautiful.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is it for like people pleasers and overachievers, you spend so much of your life trying to kind of second guess what everybody else is thinking and what their sort of perception of you is, that you're so bogged down in that like you say, you don't realize what everybody else is seeing looking back at you.
Right. Well, because we're so prioritized about supporting everyone else, right? Like you look in the mirror, but you really don't see what's in the mirror, because you have all the other tabs open of like, those are the priorities, not the what's, looking right back at you.
So tell me about the business you've got now then.
Yeah. So I ended up relaunching Solara once I got into a really healthy, and with that, I took some time and really journaled and been like, am I ready? Right? Because just because I have done all these things to heal doesn't mean that I'm ready to have this business come to life again.
I love that awareness.
And so and I think that's important for us to remember. And it's something that I always keep in mind, even as I was building this third business, because I'm not short of ideas to create. My best friend tells me that every single day. Now, is it the time? Is it the time for me personally is the time for this, my community or society for it. Those are different questions, right? That we really have to lean into. So it took some time for me, even after, and you and I said this earlier too, healing journey never ends, right? Like it's always continuous. Like I am
Oh, yeah,
still in
definitely.
this in this healing journey. But once I got into a really good part, I still sat with, is it still like, am I in the right season to relaunch Solara? Took me a little bit, I would say another 1 or 2 months before I really like felt comfortable bringing it back out into the world. So we did that. And then as I've been growing and having incredible conversations with female founders, the third business that evolved and recently we just launched is a private network for all women in business. And what that means is that we vet and intentionally curate specific rooms through invite only dinners that allow women to meet the right women that they need to meet in the season that they're in. And so when I say vetted, we, you fill out an application, we understand who you are, what you need, how you can support, other women right now. And we hand select the women to be in specific rooms. And I call rooms as our dinner rooms.
Yeah.
To make sure that there's real deep conversations, not this surface level networking. I've been in the event world for far too long. I have seen every variation of an event experience you can think of. And I personally have been sick of the surface level networking, and the conversations I've had with women were just over it, where there's just too much overstimulation. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of the reason of the birth of Raise, which is this network. So that way we really go deep. We really understand who we are as human beings and not just business owners or executive leaders.
Yeah.
And we get to know how we can support each other. And it doesn't have to, and the biggest thing is like, I don't want any of this to be transactional. It's, I want to support you because I adore you and your mission. I know who you are as a human. And I want you to succeed. And that's what we want to create in these rooms. So that's this next business that we're focusing on to,
That's
yeah, just
amazing.
help more women get into, better rooms for themselves.
Yeah. So is it kind of like a co-mentoring situation meets like support group?
So it's more of a network. So think of it, you're going to be incorporated into a virtual network of incredible women. At the same time, we're going to hand select you to join a physical dinner
Mm.
with 19 other women. So we cap our dinners at 20 women to make sure that there's intimacy, that there's enough time to really go deep in conversations and not just, oh, we'll continue on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea is for proximity, connection, visibility, for every woman in that room to show up as themselves in the season that they're in and support each other and receive support from each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, ultimately it's just, bringing women together into a network. So there's always someone that you can share, whether it's a personal, challenge, or you need to be connected for, to grow your team, or if you're raising, money for your business, any kind of scenario. Our goal is to have a really high caliber network of women for you to be connected with, naturally through the dinners, but just within our network as we grow globally. So that way there's always somebody that, you can find to be able to help support you.
That's amazing. I love that idea. It's amazing.
Thanks. We're really excited.
Yeah, I can tell just talking to you that you're really passionate about what you do. I love it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to something you said earlier about being like you mentioned that like your whole identity was an overachiever. So
Yeah.
how do you reconcile that with how you're living life now?
Oh man. So I'm not going to say that I'm fully cured.
Are we
I
ever?
definitely, yeah, I definitely have high standards, and I've done the work to understand that the reason I'm so good at what I do from an event production standpoint and the curation standpoint is because I have these high standards. You know what I mean? So I've taken I've taken the quote unquote problem that the however, if we want to say call it that, and kind of reframed it as that it's my superpower, and so so yes, the overachieving, the high standards, the needing everything to be perfect in the beginning and before I was conscious to all of this, right? It's too much, and it's the reason it's burning me out, and it's the reason why I'm going down that path. But now it's more so of like, okay, how do I hone in on that to a reasonable standard, right? In terms of not getting into that burnout, but utilize it to have it be my superpower and have everyone in my world know that you are coming in and across all three businesses, right? Like you can hire me to produce your event because you know that every detail is going to be to the 10th degree and it's going to be an incredible event. You can join Solara to find events because you know that the incredible events are going to be there and not just like, Joe's barbecue off of Eventbrite. Sorry. And then with Raise, you know that you want to be in the rooms because you know the women in that room is extremely vetted through me that has high standards. And I need to make sure that the women in that room are getting there. Right. So for me now, it's a reframe that I'm using this to make sure that everyone that associates with me within the community knows that these are, the high standards, and the overachieving is actually a good thing. But for myself, I just kind of acknowledge and I listen to my body. And if there's pain coming through, okay, where's that coming from? What did I recently start doing that maybe caused that pain, right? Or if I'm feeling fatigued, okay, where is that fatigue coming from? Is it from the workout or is it because I'm overdoing somewhere? And so just being a lot more self-aware now.
I love that because that is exactly what I teach. It's basically like turning struggle into purpose and reframing it.
Yeah, we have to.
And putting boundaries in place to stop it from sliding back.
Yeah, right. Well, I love that you're teaching this because ultimately, right, like I'm obsessed with that, right? Like I'm whether we want to say I was born into like having these high standards or I was bred in corporate, like whatever we want to call it, but that's just who I am, right? Like that's how I live. I can't turn that off as much as I want to try, right? And so in this conversation, I think it actually would be a detriment to turn it off. And this, whatever, let's insert whatever here, right? Not even the overachieving. I think it would be a detriment to not only the person and their community because it's a finite skill that we have. We just have to reframe it. We just have to make it a superpower versus it being, an inconvenience or a burden or whatever we want to call it.
Because when you're told that thing's not good, you need to fix it, it means that you think you're broken. And you're not. You're just you. You just need to figure out how to use the powers that you have. It's like for me with the people pleasing. Like the people pleasing for me is really good in certain ways because it means I'm good with people. It means if I want to help with things and I want to like be there for people, I'm really good at that. But I'm also now very good at putting boundaries there to protect myself because I don't want to be everything to everybody. I want to be more selective.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, right, like when we've said this multiple times that we are continuously growing, right? The journey never stops.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important that wherever you are in your journey, there's always going to be something you're learning about yourself. And we just have to learn and take note. And then whether it's pivot or grow off of the challenge to better ourselves. I mean, ultimately that's you just do that for the rest of your life. And, and again, I say seasons because these are all different seasons that we've talked about for myself. And I'm very grateful for each one because I've had incredible experiences even through the challenges that I would never give up, and I would never, and I will never say that I want to go back and change because it's made me who I am today. It's taught me the lessons that I know today that
Yeah.
I am leaning on and using to learn for this next version of myself. So we just gotta have to keep remembering it's never ending, and we gotta just like learn from our mistakes and go to the next.
Yeah, and by doing that, you kind of figure out what you're willing to tolerate in yourself and others, and vice versa.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I can agree
So
more.
it's information. So what else do you find yourself still struggling with then, other than the, like, obviously you've learned to reframe the overachieving into something that is like adding to your success rather than a detriment to it. So is there anything else that you still find yourself struggling, that you're still learning?
Yeah, I'm very passionate, and so whenever I do have an idea, so very recently, right, like with this idea of Raise and building it and trying to bring it to life with different women here in Austin first, I did find myself working late hours, because the brain and the creativity and the ideas were just literally nonstop, right? And so
Yeah,
there were moments where I was just so in a black hole of building and like ideating and creating, and realizing and looking up and like, wow, it's 3 a.m. What am I doing still up? Right. And it
yeah,
kind of, there was, after a few times, it actually caught me, of wait a second, these are the habits, that I was doing continuously in the last season, right?
yeah,
These are me staying up late, not prioritizing eating, not prioritizing working out. And there were a few of those days during this like really intense creative, moments of Raise, that I caught myself and I was like, wait a second, I didn't go to the gym 3 times this week. I went once, which that's a massive problem
mm,
because I now know that going to the gym is a really, really intense and needed relief for my body
yeah,
and for my mind. Like I can just shut off out there, right? The not eating was a very, very bad habit that I had in my last season. That obviously, conduced to a lot of health issues.
yeah,
I fixed that with eating right, but I started noticing that I was skipping meals, right? And so just being a lot more aware, even if I was in that tunnel and being like, wait a second, take a step back. What's happening? What are old patterns that I'm doing again? And we got to reset and go back, because I now have like this self-talk of like, you don't want to be where you were, right? Like you don't want to
yeah,
be crying, figuring it out again. So you've created these routines and they work, stay with them.
yeah. Well, that's good. It's good that you've got that awareness to pick up on those patterns when they start coming back, because a lot of people would struggle with that. They just
Yeah,
realize
and
too late.
I will be the first to admit I am not nearly anywhere close to perfect, right? And so I think we go back to this like having your people, having your community, having your tribe. Because there were plenty of moments where, I started feeling like I was getting back into that like depression,
Mm,
that I had. And we're bound to get into these like ebbs and flows, right? Once you kind of, in my instance, once you get out of burnout, it doesn't mean you're not going to go back.
yeah,
It just means you got to figure out, like we've said, right, ways to not get back to as bad as it was and recalibrate once you start noticing you are shifting towards it, right? So just
yeah,
understanding, I think that's the biggest thing for me. And, again, I've had multiple burnouts in my career. What I had to really get into is understanding what are the patterns that get me there. And if I start seeing myself tending towards those patterns, to try to catch myself
yeah,
and talk to myself about it. Like, why are we doing that? Why are we going down that path again? Why are we skipping a meal? Why didn't we go to the gym? And so naturally there's going to be times where we're just like, Anna, I'm just exhausted and I don't want to go work out. Fine, right? Like we have to also give ourselves
yeah,
grace. But if it becomes a pattern, if it becomes repetitive, then we really need to sit in and just be like, okay, why? Why are we not doing what we know is working?
Yeah.
But then also having that tribe. I had to talk to my girlfriends and my trainer and be like, girls, like I don't know what's happening. Like especially with my trainer, I was like, I haven't gone to the gym all week. And she's like, well, let's talk through it. What's going on? I've had a recent injury. And so she was like, okay, give yourself grace. You're trying to heal. Your body's going through a lot. Maybe, just the walks is enough. And just getting that reassurance with your, your community is always good too, because sometimes your brain is going to tell you, everything is shit. And again, everyone else is like, you're doing great. So you got to be able to have that mirror to kind of just like, check yourself.
Yeah. So building on what you've just said, what kind of wisdom would you go back and give that younger version of you who was going through all the burnout and the overachieving and really struggling to just keep up with everything? What do you wish somebody had said to you?
But it's not all that serious. I especially from when I was back in corporate and I was young and trying to prove just trying to prove, right? I was proving to nobody. I was just a number like everyone else in corporate at the time. So really it's just like not everything is so serious. We are always evolving and learning and changing. I think that's the big one, is changing, right?
Yeah.
And kind of off of what we just talked about, it's like continue to learn even after the challenges and the failures, right? Like that's not the end road. That's not the door shut, but that's actually the pivot that you need in order to continue to grow.
Yeah. And building on that, I think sometimes recognizing the patterns is enough, because you can kind of you kind of automatically then adjust your behaviors. But if you're really struggling to break those patterns, instead of trying to take massive big steps and fixing everything all at once, just think about like what one tiny thing can you change and do that. Because once that becomes easy, you can then start adding other steps in and changing things one at a time. At least then you're getting those quick wins and you're making changes and you can see those positive changes taking effect, rather than trying to blow your whole entire life up and fix everything and then getting stressed out and burned out and upset about the fact that you failed in effect.
Right. Yeah. One step is enough, to your point, right? Like we don't have to do it all at once. Get your like foundation, right? Like take that first step and just be able to feel grounded and then you can do the next and then do the next, and not to, just overcommit to everything, and I think again, that is very similar to the people pleasing attribute. We just want to do it all for everybody. And what one step is enough.
Yeah. And perfect is very, very overrated.
There is no perfect. That's the thing.
Exactly.
I think that's the other message that I would tell myself, is that there nothing in this world is perfect, because also if we really think about it, now I'm like really fired up, right? It's all dependent on perspective and people's version of what perfect is. So my version of perfect is nothing going to be close to what your version of perfect is, because we're two humans that are completely different. We have different stories and upbringings, right? Even two event planners are not going to have the same perfect, And so I think we always strive for that perfectionism, but like, what does that mean? There is no end to that. So 100%, there's no perfect. So you don't have to always like make that be the end all be all of what we do.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like that, isn't it? It's like when you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody at all. And I think it's the same with chasing that perfection, because you're not making yourself happy by chasing that perfection. You're just stressing yourself out, and you're not really making anybody else happy either, because they're not really bothered in your version of perfection.
Right. And what I've also experienced is like my 50% and someone else's 100% expectation. Yeah. So why am I going to like kill myself to my 100% when 50 was enough for that client.
Yeah.
Again, to a certain extent, but like from their perceived value, right? So they think everything went well. Like from an event perspective, I'll give an example where I think everything went to shit, but the client thought it was the most amazing thing that the event that they've ever had. That's two different perspectives of what the experience was. So absolutely, it's all individual.
Yeah. So I think with perfection, I think as long as you're striving for progress, that's all you can do. That's all you can do. I can't believe how quick this has gone. It's absolutely mental. How would people go about connecting with you? So if they've got a similar story and want to just connect, or they want to find out more about your businesses, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So on Instagram, I am not crazy active on there, but I am definitely in my DMs. So you can message me, Anna_Gryglewska. And then if you want to learn more about our Raise dinners and just our network, you can go visit us at joinrais.com. And then if you want event production support, specifically around retreats and intimate dinners, then you can find us at theelevatedcollective.co.
Perfect. And I'll put those links in the show description anyway. So if people want to click, they can find it very, very easy. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me and sharing your story. It's been absolutely amazing. I've loved it.
Yeah, this was so much fun. I'm so glad we got to chat through it. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. And thank you for listening to those of you at home. And I will catch you next week.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I know these conversations aren't always easy to sit with, so we really appreciate you sticking through it. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can join our Discord community at www.haleyryan.co.uk/Discord, and we'll see you next week.